Electricast.
At Talos, we know cybersecurity can be tough and you can't protect everything, but with Talos, you can secure what matters most. With Talos industry-leading platforms, you can protect critical applications, data, and identities, anywhere and at scale with the highest ROI. That's why the most trusted brands and largest banks, retailers, and healthcare companies in the world rely on Talos to protect what matters most. Applications, data, and identities. That's Talos, T-H-A-L-E-S. Learn more at talosgroup.com/cyber.
New Vitamin Water Zero Sugar Pineapple Passion Fruit is packed with vitamins, just like the amount of peas we packed in that sentence. It's packed like your tote bag, the one you stole from your ex, or your overpriced half a studio apartment, or extra rushed rush hour traffic. Packed like your calendar, triple booked at 5, of course. Grab a Vitamin Water. Did we mention it's packed with vitamins?
Welcome to Her Extraordinary Life by Design, where we celebrate women who are shaping their lives one extraordinary day at a time. I'm your host, Leslie Gaudette, self-care coach for women who are ready to make self-care a priority to support them in life and business. Every week, I'll be speaking with inspiring women from various walks of life who will share their personal journeys and will discover how they have fearlessly carved their own paths as business owners, passionately pursuing their dreams and creating a meaningful impact on their communities. So let's get started. Hello and welcome to Extraordinary Life by Design podcast. I'm your host, Leslie Gaudette, and today we're talking with Atara Parkinson. Atara is a licensed marriage and family therapist and has been practicing in the field of mental health for 14 years. She's continued her education by becoming a certified integrative professional. Her current passions include holistic healing, supporting postpartum mamas, Brainspotting, therapeutic intensives, and educating on the role of minerals for brain health and nervous system regulation. Revitalization and rebalancing clients are core goals in Atara's work. Atara, I am excited to welcome you to the show today and really looking forward to talking more about what you do. So welcome.
Thank you, Leslie. Yes, I'm thrilled to be here.
Well, you've been in the mental health field for 14 years, or maybe even more. And what I love is how you've expanded your work to include integrative and holistic healing. So can you share what led you into this field and what inspired you to begin blending traditional therapy with things like minerals, brain spotting, and nervous system regulation?
Yeah, absolutely. Great question. And I think for so many people that start to get into the integrative world, it is very connected to our own story. And I am no different here. So my journey really began in about 2012, 2013, as I'm finishing my graduate work. And I have essentially run my body ragged at this point. I am working full time, 40 hours a week. I have a practicum with emancipated foster youth for 20 hours a week. I am doing my coursework and studying to graduate, right, with my master's. So this is not a small load that I'm taking on. And then kind of in my personal life to cope with some of this, I am running and training for marathons. I'm also binge drinking on the weekends. So, to cope with all of the stress. And so this is not a good fit. And what basically happened here was, now we call this chronic fatigue, where I had a complete health crash and I couldn't get out of bed for more than 2 hours at a time without being so tired that I had to crawl back into my bed. And so this really started my journey and led me into finding alternative methods. And we won't go into the details there, but basically I was disappointed, right, with our medical system and found a doctor who would run some neurotransmitters. And then a few years later, in 2016, I had really improved at this point, but I got pregnant and had my first baby. And this again really pushed my body over in this manifested in postpartum anxiety and what we now would identify as rage. And so this is where the journey really began for me. And I'm really thankful I discovered then minerals on this path. And I noticed such an impact, not just on my physical health, but also in my mental state, right? I kind of found that spark again in life. I was able to cope with stress better. I wasn't as irritable. I had more energy. I wasn't anxious. I had never been an anxious person. And here I was really ruminating over the smallest decisions, right? Should we go to this event or not, right? Felt so overwhelming. And when I got the minerals on board, it just changed my life. And so now I love helping clients in that way because yes, we need to talk about it. Yes, we need the tools, but also we need to be looking at what is happening in the biochemistry and the physiology of our body.
Yeah, I love that because for me, it isn't just about putting the Band-Aid on it, right? Because a lot of the
Exactly.
time, what I've found just from traditional medicine, and I'm not bashing doctors, but
Right.
what I've found with traditional medicine is that here, take this for that, or take that
Mm.
this for that thing. And there's not really that deeper level looking into like what the real issue is. And I think really, unfortunately, it just feels like until you hit that chronic stage is when they actually say, okay, let's start looking at the underlying issues. But it could have been prevented way earlier than that is how I look at it. So I love that you brought that up because it's not just about putting that Band-Aid on. And it really is about, getting to a little bit more into like the inner workings of ourselves and not just doing the talking about it and some of those things, which are really important, but also like, okay, what else can I do that can be natural to help support my body? One of the things I know that over the last, I would say, couple of years now, I've talked with a lot of women, high
Mhm.
achievers by
Mhm.
nature. And what I've
Mhm.
found from my conversations with these women, including even the research that I've been doing, I've done a lot of research and I continue to do research, but is that I've often finding that they're operating in a near constant state of overdrive. And I think you kind of were hitting on that, alluding to that a little bit. So
Yes.
from your lens as a therapist and an integrated practitioner, how does chronic stress affect the nervous system? And what are the emotional costs that often go unrecognized?
Oh gosh, such a powerful question. And so let's just pause real quick and talk about the nervous system to get a view of what is going on. And so when I talk to clients, we talk about the nervous system ladder. At the very top being this green zone. This is like calm, connected, maybe present, right? We're focused on the present. We're able to have a good conversation with somebody. And then the nervous system can drop down into what's called the sympathetic nervous system, which is the state of like the fight or flight. And then we call this the yellow zone. And in yellow, now just to be clear, we do this all day long and we teeter totter between a calm, collected state and stress, right? So our nervous system is it's fairly resilient, especially at the beginning of life, and it could really easily come in and out of this state like a teeter totter. And the example I like to use when we're talking about this is if you've ever woken up late, right? Or you're running late for something. Oh my gosh, you look at the clock. Oh gosh, we're late or I didn't give myself enough time or the alarm didn't go off. Okay, that is dropping down into that yellow zone, right? We do it all the time. It happens all the time. Not that we're late all the time, but maybe something happens that's stressful and we drop down into that. What is super important is that we have the capacity to come back out of that state into the green zone. And what can happen over time when we live in a chronically stressed state is that bucket gets heavier and heavier and it drops further down into that yellow zone. And then, in order to come back up into the green, it requires more from us because there's too much weight in the bucket. Now, to again get really practical about this, what are some of the weights in the bucket? Okay, having conflict at work, having a boss that you feel like is overbearing or micromanages you. Let's be real. I love my kids. I have 4 of them, but kids had more stress in our bucket, right? It's more to manage. Maybe we've got too many activities going on. We can't say no to things. We're saying yes to everything. More weight in the bucket, more weight in the bucket, right? And so this eventually drives that nervous system down into a constant fight or flight mode. Now, the next question I usually get from people is, well, there's something below that. There's a red zone, I'm going to guess. And yes, you are right. If you're out there thinking that there is a red zone, and red zone is like we would in therapy land call it depression. We would also call it disassociation. We would call it disconnection. A red zone is when I have been in that yellow for so long, I start to completely shut down. And I want to be really clear here. We never go immediately from a green zone and straight down into a red. there is always a yellow zone that happens, and usually for a decent amount of time before we start to drop down into that red zone.
Yeah, I like how you were framing that because it is true. I think we tend to think, and I guess it's just because we're not really like getting into that analytical part. It's like, I feel this way, then I feel this way, right? And so we're not like thinking, okay, well, there's all these different levels, but there are. Like, you don't
Mhm.
just, again, you could be all the way down at a specific place, where you're feeling really down in the dumps, and you're not necessarily all of a sudden overnight going to be up here in happy land. And that's just
Yeah.
because you have to go through all of those different emotions and getting
Mhm.
back up that ladder again into that green zone. So I love that you brought that in. So I guess my follow up to that would be, how can women begin to actually notice early signs
Mhm.
that their system's out of balance?
That's yeah, great question. We want to, if we can raise that awareness, if we can tune in as much as possible. And when I'm working with clients, I will usually give some kind of homework of, hey, if possible, make a note in your phone and just write down, right, throughout the week. Oh, feeling really overwhelmed today. Or, gosh, I had a really difficult conversation. I had conflict with my spouse this week. My kids are acting foolish, right? It's really stressful for me. And then with that, we can start to notice what is happening. We live, most of us, and you're mentioning high achieving women. So we're usually living at a really rapid pace. We are moving through life very quickly. We have lots to do. There's lots on our plate. So the more that we can bring our awareness around our state of being, it's just super important. And it sounds super simple, but you would not believe how many people out there aren't doing this, right? Aren't checking in with themselves and say, wait, hold on. How am I really doing? Right? What's happening for me? This is actually a form of self-care. We use self-care. We kind of associate self-care with like the bonbons, right? Or I'm gonna, go to a fancy spa or get a massage. Those are self-care, but self-care can be as simple as, hold on. What's going on for me? How am I doing right now? Wow, that was a really busy week. How can I take care of myself? Even if it's like going for a walk, being out in nature. These are some of the ones, my natural go tos, right? How can I slow down for a little bit? Really can help reestablish and reset that. I was thinking too, as I was just talking about our mind, where our mind is. This is something I talk a lot about with women, especially the high achievers. We're often in a future tense. We are living in the future. Okay, what if this happens? Okay, this is coming up. What am I going to do here? Right? We're living not in the present. The other place people live often is the past. Gosh, I wish that had gone differently. Why didn't I say that? Right? What would my life look like if I had made this decision or that decision? This is the past. And so both of these states are absent and essentially distract us from the gift of the present and what the present has to offer us. So another really easy trick is to pay attention to the thoughts and notice, oh, am I living in the future? Am I living in the past right now? Can I pull myself back to this present moment? There's also things we can do, right, in our physical universe that help bring us back to the present. Exercise, movement forces us to be present tense. If I'm not in my body as I'm moving it, I get injured, right? I hurt myself. So that is like almost like a forcing to be present focused. I find cooking, creating helps me to be present focused. These are just some little ways and tricks that women can easily incorporate to help bring them back to the present.
I love that. I like the idea of just actually finding ways to what you have to focus on to bring you
Mhm.
back into a present moment state so that you're not focusing on like the what ifs and you're not focusing and regretting like, oh my gosh, like this happened, and now what does that mean about me? Because that's usually what
Mhm.
happens, right? We take it that step further. Like, what does that mean about me? Always in that,
Exactly.
if we're in that past state. So I love that.
Mhm.
So you've done a lot of work around the role of minerals. You've
Mhm.
talked about that for brain health. So can you share which minerals are foundational for nervous system regulation and mental clarity
Mhm.
and why they
Yes.
matter so much, especially for women who are juggling business and personal demands?
Mhm. Oh, I love it. So this is a topic I could talk about all day. I'm so passionate about it. Minerals are so essential to every system in our body. We're talking about specifically mental health, right, and neuro health, but also our cardiovascular system, our immune system, our endocrine system, our hormones, all of this, and all of these systems are dependent on minerals, right? And the way that minerals have been talked about are like the spark plugs of life. And so the crucial four minerals that I typically start and talk about with women are magnesium, potassium, sodium, and calcium. And we call these the crucial four. They are responsible for so much in our body. They start this cascade effect that happens. So let's do, for example, we want to maybe be more calm, right? Our nervous system is feeling dysregulated. We kind of have this like angsty, revved up energy. Well, in order for our body and our nervous system to get more relaxed, right, that's dependent on the production of neurotransmitters. The production of neurotransmitters in the brain is reliant on minerals, right? So if we don't have that minerals, we then cannot make those neurotransmitters and we cannot be in that desired calm state. You'll see this all the time when a client gets a therapeutic tool and they're like, that's a great tool. It's just not working for me, right? I'm doing this. I'm trying to, like, we'll say, stay present focused. I'm trying to stay present focused, but my mind just keeps jumping to that future what if. Yes, that is why we have to come at this with these layers, because your body, your brain might not even be capable of doing that. And the way that I say this is we are aiming in therapy to create neuroplasticity, right? To create changes in the brain. The problem is if our brain is not capable of making those changes and sustaining those changes, what are we doing? Right? The work we're doing, it won't even be effective. So that's where minerals come in and they're essential to have so that those processes that we're doing will be effective. So we can get really nuanced, Leslie, if you'd like to, and talk about what each of those minerals do. What's your preference?
Yeah, I mean, I would love to be able to go directly in that. I mean, I don't mind going off a little bit because I really feel this is important, especially when it comes to mental health, right? And so I feel that if this is going to really help the listener to understand like the importance of why these, as you call them, the crucial four really matter, I definitely would love to,
Okay. Well, then let's do it. So the
Mhm.
first one that I mentioned is magnesium. And I always mention magnesium first because it is, I think, the highest one that most of us are deficient in. Now, we burn through magnesium at a really high rate when we're under stress. So that busy, high achieving woman that we're talking to, right? She is almost constantly burning through the magnesium. Magnesium is necessary for neurotransmitter synthesis, nerve transmission, neuromuscular conduction. So the fact that as we're talking, I'm moving my hands through the air because I talk with my hands, right? That requires magnesium. I'm burning through magnesium. Magnesium actually is a precursor to over 3,000 enzymic processes in the body. So it means it has to be present in order for that system or process to work effectively. So very, very important. Minerals add resilience, as I've kind of been saying, to our mental health. They are protective for the body when we're under that stress. They're also crucial for mitochondrial processes. So we want to be able to make energy and make that ATP in the mitochondria. We need magnesium. And we need it, let me be specific here. We need it in the cell. We don't just need it floating around. We need it to, when we consume it, that process of taking it in and it going into the cell, that's a process as well. And so that's really important. So magnesium, some great ways to get magnesium would be, an easy one is a bath soak. So there's actually bath magnesium flakes that you can get out there and throw in your bathtub. If you have young kids or kids that take baths, I throw it in and then I put my feet over and soak it in through my ankles and my feet. You can get magnesium transdermal or through the skin. You can drink mineral waters. right? So there's minerals waters out there that are really great. I also say spring water. If you have a local spring near you, this is a great way to get in a little extra mineral magnesium boost. And the last one, obviously, is you can take an oral supplement of magnesium. And in our household, we do all of the above, right? It just depends on the day, it depends on the weather. We live up in cold weather, so you don't want mineral water on like, a snowy day. So we're going to do a bath instead or an oral supplement. But in the summertime, we're drinking a lot of mineral waters and with a yummy lime squeeze or something in there. So that's magnesium. It's I think typically the best place for people to start, especially if you feel like you're kind of stuck in that fight or flight or that revved up place. All right. The second one that I'll talk about there is potassium. Now, potassium is really essential. It transports nutrients and energy at the cellular level. It helps regulate our blood pressure and manages our glucose. So if you're having blood sugar issues, look at your potassium levels, to consider maybe I'm not getting enough. It's very likely that you're not getting enough because 98% of Americans do not consume their recommended daily intake of potassium. Now, potassium is one that we really love to get through food sources. So I don't recommend supplementing potassium, but it's pretty easy to get in things like potatoes, sweet potatoes, salmon, butternut squash, coconut water is an easy and fave one. Ground beef is pretty high. Bone broths, aloe vera juice, white beans. These are all foods high in potassium. One thing I like to do with my clients to make this really easy is batch cook sweet potatoes, right? I think most of us love sweet potatoes. You can bake 4 or 5 at the beginning of the week. Then I will put them in the fridge to cool off. And then, once a day, I'll pull out half or a whole potassium, get some good grass-fed butter on there, a little sodium, and you're getting a great hit of potassium for the day. Coconut water for the busy, high-achieving woman is another great one if you enjoy it. I make what's called like an adrenal cocktail. And this is good. Again, our adrenals are working really hard when we're under stress. So we want a little extra love on them. Most people at about 2 or 3 p.m. in the afternoon, they're reaching for more coffee, right? We're like, oh my gosh, I'm tired. I'm feeling sluggish. Instead, this is a really great place to introduce some coconut water. And you can make an adrenal cocktail with that coconut water, again, a lime squeeze and a little bit of salt. It's delicious. It's refreshing. And it's also nourishing to our body. And so this is what I do with people. I just look at what is your life looking like and can we make some little tweaks to make this really easy for you and not add more to your plate. So that's potassium. Then we have sodium. And sodium helps really keep our nervous system regulated. It's kind of like a battery for our body when we get sodium. It supports blood sugar, blood pressure regulation. It guards against kidney stones, osteoporosis, heart disease, and stroke. So again, very important here. Sodium also helps transport the nutrients into our cells. Sodium's a real obvious one, right? You know where to get that? Salts. And if you're really craving salty foods, it might be a signal from your body that you need more good quality sodium. Now, you can buy salts, right? Table salt. What I would recommend is that the salt you're reaching for is minimally processed. The more processing done on those salts, the more it's actually stripping those other minerals that can be naturally found in sodium as well. So we buy Kirkland sea salt most of the time, but sometimes we'll do like what I call fancy salt. And that would be like, I love Baja Gold. We buy Redmond sea salt from Utah. And there's another one. Oh, Celtic sea salt is another great brand. And this is great. You can sprinkle some of it in your water. You can obviously season your foods with salt. And just adding little bits of salt throughout your day is a great way to get that sodium up. And lastly, we have calcium. Calcium is another one that we really love to get through food sources. I would not recommend getting calcium from a supplement. Why this is minerals work synergistically in the body, meaning they work together, but they also can be antagonistic, meaning if we increase one too much, it pushes another one down. And this is one I see all the time when people are getting too much calcium and it's like displaced in the body, it's not in the right places. our magnesium and potassium levels start to suffer. And then that's where we get that really, as we've been talking about, that revved up anxiety feeling is typically we're seeing too high calcium in the body and not enough of the magnesium, potassium. Some great sources, though, that are really safe for food sources would be, again, that bone broth. Obviously, dairy, quality dairy, are ideally organic, possibly raw if you can tolerate. Quality cheeses. This is not as popular with people, but if you're reaching for the small canned fish like sardines or anchovies, those are actually really high in calcium as well.
Wow.
Yes.
Yeah, I love it though. This is fantastic.
I'm so glad.
I learned a lot too. So thank you so much. No, I
Yes.
appreciate that because it's really important. I
Mm,
feel that we need to talk about this. And it's not, again, like I said, it's not about just putting the band aid on. It's finding ways to figure out what the issue is, but also how can we combat it in a way where it's not just like the surface level, but going deeper into it and figuring that out. So I love that. Well,
yes.
I want to talk about postpartum because I know
Mm,
you work closely with postpartum women, and I
mhm,
feel they're a group that are often overlooked in conversations, especially around leadership and ambition. I've seen a lot of research. One in particular stood out for me where there was a woman I was reading about her. What she was going through was she's just had a baby like within like the last 10 months, and she's just starting to feel like life's changing and sort of getting that resentfulness because the baby kind of came and she thought she was all excited, but then
mm,
you're not really, I guess, prepared for how you're going to feel like at that cell level, at that nervous system level, right? You
yes.
just don't know. And
Mm,
and it just I know that it affects women differently, depending, I guess, on your makeup and all of the things, and probably
absolutely.
your mineral levels too.
Mineral status.
So,
Yep.
right? So, what are some of the invisible? And so, like, before I get to that question, what I was trying to say is that she was saying, like, all of these things, feeling a little bit resentful, wanting to make changes, but feeling like she was stuck because, specific financial obligations for the family. And
Mhm.
so that can be really, really hard. So I wanted to know from that emotional standpoint, what are some of the emotional shifts women experience in that season? And how can we better support them or support ourselves if that's us or those we love during that
Mm,
identity transition?
mm. Ooh, yes, I love, love, love this topic. I was just part of an event this last weekend locally called Moms Like Me. And it was such a beautiful display of exactly what you're saying, really the spectrum of what motherhood can look like and what we can experience in motherhood. And so there was such value in hearing these different perspectives. And I love that you said too, motherhood and pregnancy, postpartum can look different for every woman. And not only that, the postpartum for a woman can look different with every baby. I've had a client, I've walked her through 3 pregnancies, and the first one, we really had, I'm trying to put them in order, a lot of anxiety. The second one, the second one was the raginess, right? That, like, kind of anger, irritability, and the third one was some more depressive symptoms. So even a woman, based on a different pregnancy, can really have a different experience, different symptoms coming out. So you're absolutely right too, in that this pregnancy postpartum, I think, is an underserved population, and it's a very vulnerable population. And there's vulnerability because the metabolic and mitochondria health really changes during pregnancy and in postpartum. Pregnancy is actually a stress state for the body. And during pregnancy, our resources get allocated to building that baby. So, what might have been borderline problematic then becomes very obvious during a pregnancy or in the postpartum because the nutrient stores that we do have or maybe don't have enough of already, those are getting put to baby. And then we're really noticing or suffering from, we'll take magnesium, for example. What do women always complain about in pregnancy? Cramps. I have leg cramps, muscle cramps, this kind of thing. It's a magnesium deficiency. And when I, offer, hey, have you tried taking a little extra magnesium? They go away. right? And there's no more cramping. It's so beautiful. It's actually an indicator to me as well. Like when I'm when I'm a little over exhausted, overextending myself, I start to get a little bit more leg cramping. So I'll up my magnesium dose, right? So again, these nutrients that are required, if mama's already deficient, she's going to feel the impact even more. Postpartum, women lose 10% minimum of their mineral stores, right? And that is not even accounting for the stress and effort that is required for labor. And it is not accounting at all for breastfeeding. So we can imagine that number is likely much, much higher, which is, I theorize, why we see so many postpartum mental health issues is because we do not have the mineral stores to begin with. We lose even more in our pregnancy and postpartum. So we think of the classic mom brain, right? For example, is likely connected to nutritional depletion, gut issues, blood sugar regulation, these kinds of things. The other things that come to mind real quickly are brittle nails, a hair loss, or skin issues. The body is going to take from the places that are quote unquote non-essential. It's going to protect your blood. It's going to protect your heart, your liver first. It's going to use the minerals in those places first. But your nails are non-essential. Your hair is a non-essential technically to the body, right? So you're going to start to see suffering in those areas. These are all clues that we need some extra minerals. And then, of course, we know hormones, right? Our hormones are doing some big swinging. As I mentioned earlier, hormone production is reliant on minerals and mitochondria health. So you don't have proper minerals, your body is not going to make those hormones that are really shifting after pregnancy, especially.
Yeah, I love that. I'm learning a lot. And
Yeah.
I've never had a baby, but I just know that I've been seeing these different, questions, whether it's in Reddit or it's, wherever I'm looking and I'm
Mhm.
researching for what I do. And I start seeing women talking about these topics. And I realize that there's, with the moms, there is that. And I think there comes with, I believe, like, especially with that, there must come a lot of shame and feeling like, what's wrong with me, you know, self-talk because you think like there's something definitely wrong with you. But like you were explaining, each pregnancy can be experienced by a woman differently. It doesn't have to be the same. It's not like, you have postpartum and that's it. It's like one time or one way. And also, like you were saying, which I now am starting to understand more, is that it does really play into our body's mineral,
Mhm.
stores, what we've
Yeah.
got and what's working, and that really is going to make a difference for women,
Yeah.
especially right during
Yeah.
that time.
Yeah, and I wanna say one more thing that I kind of forgot to hit on. I kind of focused on the minerals, but in this example that you gave is also the transition, right?
Hmm.
From this place and what I said in my story a couple weekends ago was from maiden to mother. And really what is
Hmm.
happening in this is we are becoming something else, something different, something new. And while there is fun, there's exciting, there's joy, there's, beauty in that, there's also this other side of the coin where there can be pain, there can be grief, there can be hardship. Like when we're learning to do something new or be something new, I think back to my education, becoming a therapist. It wasn't always easy, right? There was new skills I had to learn. I'm taking in new information. I'm knowing how to apply this information. Same thing in motherhood, right? There's this like really big learning curve that is on the practical real world level that we can see, right? But then there's also this internal shifts of the hormones, my physiology, right? We talk about brain health and we know for a fact mom's brain changes, right? When you become a mother, your brain is shifting. It dumps information, right? But it also is creating room for new information. How do I respond to my baby's cues? I'm learning new cries. I'm learning signals that my baby is sending me. And it's a beautiful process, but it's not always an easy process. So I just want to normalize that part too. What we don't do well in American culture anymore is community, having a tribe, having support, where historically women did that really well. We lived in groups. We had our moms, our aunties, our grandmas, our friends to come around us and support. Because when I'm talking about making food, making bone broth, it's a process, right? It's not just like something I whip up. There's some steps to it. How on earth do I do that with a newborn baby that I'm trying to figure out? Well, historically, we had mom's other hands to either hold baby or make that for us. And so I would encourage anyone out there listening as well, if you're pregnant or you're newly, have a new baby, now is the time to reach out to your supports, to accept help. That's something I know I really didn't do a good job of early on. Call your tribe in, make your requests known. And even if that's a challenge for you, just accept help when it's offered. That's so important as well for this season of life.
I love how you brought that in too, because for me, being here in Mexico, what I love about this community is that it's very family oriented. And so, like one of my neighbors right next door to us, the mother-in-law, his wife's mother, lives with them.
Yes.
And so they have this support because they both work shift work. So he works days from early morning up until a certain time. She goes into work and works until like 11 p.m. So there's that time where they need that be able to rest.
Yeah.
And so they have their mother-in-law. I love the fact, like you were saying, call on the community. Again, there's that whole thing. I remember going to a couple of weddings where it was, I believe it's in the Catholic faith, where they
Okay.
ask you if the congregation, the people that are witnessing them getting married, would support the newly married couple. And so I loved that. I thought, yeah, it does take a village. It
Yeah.
takes a village to have a supportive relationships. It takes a village to raise your children, and having that support when you need it, especially again for postpartum moms. So I love that you brought that up. Well, I have one more question for you.
Sure.
So many women think that healing is something that they'll get to when there's time. Right? But
Yes.
again, your work is showing that healing is a foundation for everything else. So, what's one belief you would love to see women release about what healing has to look like, and one new belief they can choose instead?
Yes. Oh, I love that. So the belief that healing needs to be extreme. Right? We see there is a very popular fad movement, if you will, going on right now of like camps of extreme belief, right? The keto, the carnivore, the vegan, like we have to be extreme in the way that we are addressing our health, addressing our self-care, addressing our diet, these kinds of things. And it does not have to be extreme. You do not have to do it all overnight. That's the other thing that I think is so crucial. And that's what I'm so passionate about walking people through is, okay, we're going to meet, right, for about 12 weeks. And why we do that is so that we can implement slowly but surely. And typically, I will give my client 2 to 3 things a week, one of them being the minerals or the cooking or the whatever in the diet. The other two are like a self-care and maybe a mental, right? Maybe you're not managing stress well. How can we help you with that? Right. So not very much at a time. We can do it simply, really, really simply and slowly. I also that healing is not linear, right? It's not that we just all of a sudden, do the things and we boom, 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 I'm getting better, better. Sometimes it's like a little bit of this forward and backwards, forwards and back, depending on what's happening in your life, depending on your stress, depending on, how much is happening right now for me that I can focus on this. So I don't want people out there to feel overwhelmed when they're looking at how can I take care of myself better? Oh my gosh, Atara mentioned all these minerals. I have to go out and get all of that now. No, 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 no. start slow, right? Pick one thing today, whether it was the movement you heard, whether it was being present, whether it was a specific mineral, right? You're like, oh yeah, I really probably could use more of that. I see those symptoms in my life. Just choose one thing and focus on that for a week or two, and then go to the next step.
Yeah, I love that. It's like just bringing the small things in because otherwise you can feel overwhelmed and then want to quit because you're saying like, this is just too much. It's like stressing me out even thinking about it. So no, I love that.
Exactly.
Oh my
Yes.
gosh. Yeah, I love that. Atara, thank you so much for spending time with me today. I really, really appreciate you sharing such a powerful perspective on nervous system healing minerals. I had no idea how important the four minerals that you mentioned are and what it truly means to support women emotionally, physically, and energetically. And I've also appreciated the way you brought clarity and depth to such an important topic because I feel like wellness is important. Mindset, mental wellness is so important. And I know that the women who are listening to this podcast are walking away with a new sense of what's possible for their well-being because it's not just about coming in and listening to someone talk. It's about what can they take away from this. So thank
Absolutely.
you so much again for being here with me and sharing so generously.
Yes. Oh my gosh, it's a pleasure. And you're absolutely right. That is why we do this work, right? So that we can make those women out there, their lives better. That is the goal. And so I'm honored to be here. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you. And to our listeners, if you'd like to connect with Atara directly and learn more about her work, you can find her contact information in the show notes. Remember, true wellness begins with listening to your body, supporting your nervous system, and giving yourself permission to heal in a way that honors your energy, your rhythm, and your season of life. Small shifts can lead to powerful change, especially when you stop trying to fix yourself and start supporting yourself instead. Until next time, keep dreaming, keep believing, and keep designing your extraordinary life one day at a time. Thank you for joining me on Her Extraordinary Life by Design. I hope you've been inspired and empowered by the incredible stories shared on this show. If you enjoyed this episode and the conversations we've had, I would greatly appreciate if you could take a moment to leave a review. Your feedback and support mean the world to me, and it will help others discover the podcast and join our empowering community. Remember to hit the subscribe button so you never miss an episode. Together, we can continue to learn from these amazing women, uncover their extraordinary journeys, and be motivated to create our own lives by design. Thank you again for tuning in. Until next time, stay empowered and keep shaping your extraordinary life one day at a time.
Every minute your finance team spends wrestling with data is a minute lost. Insight Software's AI-powered insights instantly move you from complexity to clarity. Automated analysis, real-time reporting, strategic recommendations, all at your fingertips. Transform how your finance team works and watch your business grow. Stop wasting time. Start making smarter decisions. Learn more at insightsoftware.com/AI.
Hi, it's me, Flo. Remember me from Ghost Hampton, the podcast? I was secretly in love with Lyle Hall. Well, now I'm dead and loving it. But let's talk about you. If you loved listening to Ghost Hampton, you can now spend the summer in the Hamptons. The original episodes are back, and now new episodes will be dropping every Friday. I may drop in too, just to make Lyle feel guilty. Ghost Hampton, the podcast, is now streaming everywhere.
Electricast.